Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. What's drivability training?
Drivability training. So there's different parts to being a automotive technician, a
He's
mechanic,
extensively
grease monkey, whatever you want to call it.
He's extensive drivability trained.
Yeah.
I heard.
So the first part would be your basic heavy line mechanics, unbolting big stuff, putting big stuff back in, engines, transmissions, rear ends. Then you've got suspension guys that are doing, of course, suspension. They're underneath the cars, right? Mm-hmm. Then you got tire guys. Then you got oil and lube guys. Sometimes the tire guys fall in the oil lube thing, but when they start getting a suspension alignment, they're above the lube entry level.
Okay.
Drivability is going to be when you drive your car, Chris, and you say it doesn't have the power it should, or it misses, it cuts out, it stalls on me. Those are drivability things. So to fix those, you need some diagnostic work. You need to get the scanner out and do some detailed, pinpoint testing on electronics. That can get tricky because most cars are very similar in that they all have an engine. Typically, you've got your spark going on.
Be careful when you say that. Now.
Yeah. And as far as gasoline cars go, you've got spark you have to deal with. You have to have spark, fuel, and air, all those things in order to make it run.
And they all have to be working in concert.
Right. They're all going to be similar in that fashion. But on the other hand, the designers design everyone differently. So this ignition system is different than this one. We use we use this similar sensors, sometimes the same sensors, but we put them in different ways. Maybe one has more teeth on the crankshaft sensor than another one, and it can get kind of hairy when you're trying to figure out why it's not running exactly like it should. So that's your drivability.
Okay.
I think it actually means how long you can stand to be in a car with somebody.
He is okay drivability.
Extensive drivability.
Well, like for you, Chris, your Pontiac has great drive ability. driving the Element, it's like, it's
all right.
a driver, but it doesn't have drive ability.
I noticed.
How much do you want to drive
I noticed
that car?
a little black car out there parked a little sideways in the parking spot. Just kind of, it's like the car was smiling when it parked.
That's exactly what it was doing.
It looked like Wonderbug on the front of it.
Yeah, it was smiling.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Indiana and talk to Willie. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Willie, what can we do for you?
How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Great. Thanks for asking.
All right. I got a 2011 Hyundai cylinder 1.8 engine, and I got about 100,000 miles on it, and he developed this peaking sound a while ago, maybe, I don't know, 10,000 miles ago, I guess. So I'm not quite sure. I heard the 2011 they had issues with the lifters. I'm not quite sure if it is a lifter, piston. Any ideas?
All right, hold on.
Okay,
Let's
so
recap. Willie, you got a little problem with your cell phone, but I
cell
think
phone's
we
cutting
got
out.
you.
Yeah, so Willie's got a 2011 Hyundai Elantra, and he's got a ticking noise that's developed in the engine, and he wants to know, he's heard that there have been some problems with these and some noises and things like that, and Shannon will go into a little more detail about those things. But yes, you're on the right track. There have been some things going on that result in the noise.
Yeah, the Hyundai Kia line of engines in certain vehicle make, model, year ranges had some defects that eventually showed themselves. I should back up. There was a small window of them that had some defects from manufacturing where some things got left in castings and things like that. But the highest majority of the problems that we start seeing with these cars, according to a good friend of mine that works on them, is just extended time of use and maintenance not being perfect. They just don't take it very well. And they get driven out. Have you owned this car since it was new, or are you the second owner of the car?
No, I'm the second owner. I bought it when it was, it had about 60,000 miles when I bought it.
Yeah, and so one thing we run into, and I just got a don't know, just say it like it is. There's certain brands of cars that really cater to, say, a low price finance market. They try to find a price point that they can get people into vehicles and, good programs, long warranties. They really encourage people to get into a car and be able to own their car and keeping the price point down. That doesn't always coincide with the car being taken care of the best.
Right.
And so, according to, like I said, people I talk to, that they're just, you see a lot of these problems come because of the way the cars started their early life. They didn't get people coming in on the regular routines with the maintenance. Then eventually it catches up with it, just no different than if you, I shouldn't say this because somebody did it. If you did Big Mac your whole life, eventually it would catch up with you. But I think somebody did that, and there's like 100 now or something. I think they're petrified. But the you do get some problems in, it can be the top end, lifters, followers, in that area, camshafts. There's other ones that can have problems on the bottom end. What I would do, though, is I would contact your local Hyundai Kia dealer, because your miles are low enough that you might have qualified for an extended warranty on some of these models. I don't know off the top of my head which one it is, because the engines are extremely expensive to replace, even with a used engine. And so you want to be able to, if there is a campaign or a program that you can take advantage of, you should. Now, another thing that I'll tell people on some of these campaigns, and this just isn't a Kia Hyundai thing, they had a process you had to go through. Mm-hmm. You had to go through a process of bringing the car in. They put a sound scope on it. They would listen to it. They would verify good, bad, or otherwise what it sounded like. It may not even be this model, and then they would note that the car had been in. You'd checked it out. If you didn't do that, you sometimes disqualified yourself from the extended help because you didn't follow their process. May have been on purpose that they made it that way,
right.
But that is what you have to watch out for. I've got one of our outside market representatives, happens to be my first cousin. His daughter is moving out to Las Vegas, and she's got a really nice little Hyundai, and he asked me about it. I said, hey, check with the dealer in town here. Make sure you've got everything documented, that you've done what you're supposed to have done, so that if something would happen when she's out there, she can just go to the dealer and they should take care of it. Eventually, if you don't take care of this, it will be Willie won't go.
Oh, boy. Sorry about that one, Willie.
I was building up to it the whole time.
I could see it building. It's percolating in there. Good luck, Willie. Thanks very much for the call. And that's a good way to do it, too, isn't it? Move out of town, but check with your dealer right before you leave so they can set you up for the next deal.
Well, you just want to make sure everything's documented correctly.
Yeah.
If it's something like that. And once again, this car eventually gets old enough, too, by age, that you don't qualify for some of those programs.
I'm kind of concerned of being 11.
Usually, a lot of times it's 8 years, stuff like that.
Depending on when it was put into service, it could have been put into service late and be under 10 years, or it could be 12 years.
Yeah,
right.
But always check.
Willie, thanks very much for the call. We're going to take a break quick. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Steve. Steve, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Yeah. I really enjoy your show, first of all. I just I block out time every Saturday to listen to you guys. So anyway, I sure appreciate it. But
Thank
what
you,
I
Steve.
have today is a 1958 F100, and it's in pretty decent shape. But it's got a little 6-cylinder, 3-speed trend in the tree, and I'm getting up in years. I'm like 68, and I'm probably half the man I used to be. So my question is about power steering. It doesn't have any power steering, and I'm just wondering, is it practical or cost effective to maybe have that put on, and is it something you just go to a salvage yard and get the parts? And those are some of my questions. And would the engine have holes for mounting the power steering pump and that kind of stuff?
Well, Steve, first of all, thank you for being a hoodie and making that radio appointment to tune in to us all the time. We appreciate that. And I'm going to just give a little bit of something for other listeners that may not have a clue what a 3 on the tree is. And
Okay.
because we've got different groups of listeners, and some are going to know exactly what it is and probably learn to drive on one like we did. And other people are like, I have never heard of that in my life. And a 3 on a tree was a manual transmission, and the shifting mechanism was on the steering column, just like an automatic shifter would be, but it was on the steering column, and you would move around 1, 2, 3. I can just about do it in my hand because I haven't done it for a while, but you would shift your gears. You use a clutch, and you shift it right on the steering column.
Now let me jump in. For anyone under 30, the shifter used to be on the column, whether it was automatic or 3 on the tree. You're a step ahead of
I
current.
really am. Boy, you just make a really good point there. And then what motor's in this 58 F100?
It's a little 223 6-cylinder inline 6.
It's very likely
Yeah,
that
the
it
3 on the
has.
tree just. What's that?
It's very likely that you've got some mounting holes on the front of the engine. I've looked at a lot of those, and there may be, they may not be all the holes that you would want, but there is likely that it's got some up there. I can't recall if that truck ever had.
That's what I was trying.
An option.
Was it a
for
factory option for power steering in 58? I don't know if it was yet.
It might. I believe it was.
But was it on the 6-cylinder?
Well, right, but on the truck, we're more concerned about the truck itself.
So you could get the gearbox and everything.
It would have been a power assist, not a rack or not a gearbox. What they did is they put a ram on there, just like they did with those old tractors, and then it has a couple hoses coming off of that ram that run up to the pump, and when it sees it moving one way, it gives you a little assist, and the other way a little assist. And
Similar setup like they use on the Mustang 2s and stuff?
Yeah, it's just got a hydraulic ram up there. And, yes, you can add one of those. That's going to be your cheapest route over a gearbox. There are companies out there. You might look at lmctruck.com. That's one, I think, that I know they offered it for the Chevrolet trucks and the GMC. That was a gearbox. So it came with a steering arm, and it came with a little bracket. You put the bracket on the frame, which adapts the frame to a gearbox from like a mid-70s truck, early 80s truck. You bolt it on. You put the steering arm on that box to change it, so it gives the correct steering geometry, and then you got to bolt a pump to the engine to get the power to it. That is going to be your quickest thing, either an adaptation kit from whatever company's got one out there, or the RAM system, which is going to clamp onto the gear up front there. But I would really look up. I'd get online and or have somebody get online and look at the companies like that LMC's one that.
Well, and Russ,
things.
with the huge customization of trucks being just all the rage right now. I mean, you watch the big auction houses on TV, whether it's Mecum or Barrett Jackson, the trucks are rolling through and bringing tons of money, and they've got all kinds of modern accessories added to them to make them more comfortable. It would shock me if somebody doesn't make an aftermarket kit.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the bigger challenge, like you said, would be that engine family. A lot of times if you had an engine family, it carried forward to another generation of engine that would have had power steering, and it's the same configuration of the block. They just change bore and stroke and add emission, add different carburation systems and different exhaust systems. But I can't tell you off the top of the head either if you're going to have all your mounting holes there or not. But somebody's got that figured out. I just about bet they do.
On my 56 GMC, I went with the kit that put the other box on it. And, I mean, it literally took me, I think, an hour and a half to swap out the stock box for that one. I had to – so there was one more piece because I put the box on there, and then it said measure your steering shaft and cut it here because I had a tube going straight into the original box, if you remember those. So I cut it off and then slipped the outer tube off, and it said, now there's a rag joint that just clamped on the end with some set screws. I had to clamp that on there and attach it to the box, and then that part was done. And I drove it around without power steering for a couple months yet because I had to figure out the pump. And this one had an Oldsmobile Engine 350 in it, so I eventually got a pump for it and put on there and hooked it up. And it was kind of ironic because that Oldsmobile originally had power steering in the Cutlass it was in, but when we put it in that truck, the power steering and air conditioning was taken off in the belt, so I had to go back and find the brackets I had discarded when I put it in.
Did you switch that truck like from a manual trans to an automatic and just put all the Oldsmobile stuff right in there?
No, when I bought it, I got it from
That's kind of interesting.
Sioux Falls. I can't remember his name right now. He's on my Facebook, but I got it from him when we were working at Dashboard years ago, and he's asked me, he goes, "You still have the truck?" I'm like, "No." I ended up selling it to a guy whose name is Richard Pryor, Pryor, who had a company called Priority Signs over on Marion Road, and I told him, I said, "That's the last time I saw it," and that was 25 years ago.
A long time ago.
So I don't know if he ever found it or not, but yeah.
You have a question for Steve?
What color is the truck? We got to know. Don't tell us.
Don't tell us yet.
I'm thinking that this 58 F100, boy, it'd be really sweet if it was the red. I'm kind of a fan of that in those old trucks. I'll say red.
Russ?
I think it's like a brownish color.
I'm hoping it's two-tone. I'm hoping it's the two-tone white and another color.
Probably have power steering if it was two-tone, wouldn't
It
it?
probably might. So what is it?
It's primer red.
Is it brown primer? Is it rust primer?
Rust
Yeah,
primer?
okay. We'll give
There
you
we
that.
go.
Wow.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I think Russ wins that one.
Yeah.
Steve, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to John. You're on the Under the Hood Show. John, what can we do for you?
Okay, I got a F-150 1999, and it's got all kinds of electrical problems. My wipers don't work, and my dome light don't work, and just about everything don't work.
I'd head for the gem module
And,
right away. I'd be looking right at that. That's the
Okay, and it
first place
blows
I'd look.
it blows the number 15 fuse.
Yep. Look at that. The gem module is located by the steering column under the dash. I would go under there and unplug it, put a fuse in it. If the fuse doesn't blow, then you're going to have to start diagnosing the system. If the fuse still does blow, you're going to have to get a wiring diagram out and go backwards on it. Find out where all the power distribution is for that fuse and go back. Something as simple as a penny in the cigarette lighter can do that too. We'll blow that courtesy fuse and kill everything in that body control module and kill your wipers and everything associated with it. So that's one very good idea to look at. I don't know how stuff gets stuck in there, but especially in a dash one.
The penny in the lighter is also kind of a euphemism for, not only can it be a penny in the lighter, but if that thing gets shorted at all for some other reason,
prongs from somebody putting in, or even the end of the adapters for phones fall off and are laying in there.
Well, and once again, just a little further for other people, the GEM module is it
Generic,
generic or
electronic.
general? Electronic module. It's like in a GM car, they call it the body control module.
Mm-hmm.
And with this new vehicles, we say new, this isn't as new anymore. They've got a computer system basically running inside the vehicle to keep track and control and run all and monitor all the components. And it all runs through that common generic electronic module on this truck. And if that is the point of failure, you're going to see multiple things having problems. So we always want to tell people, check your power, make sure you got a good battery, make sure your battery's solid. Our friends at Clarios with thebatterystore.com, they would give you some
battery
tips.
shop on
Battery
YouTube.
shop, on YouTube is just a great resource. But always make sure you got good power, good ground, and then start checking that other stuff. But with these newer vehicles that have so many systems in them, power has to be good.
And the fact that everything is going is saying something, is giving
Sure
an
seems like
indication.
it. It sure seems like it. And, the dome light could be something else, but, boy, you get in those Fords, they have problems with the door switches
Fuse
and things
15
like that.
right in the middle. That's
Yeah.
the courtesy fuse for all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's out.
John, thanks very much for the call. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. When you call the Under the Hood Show and you come on the show or you follow us on Facebook or our YouTube channel, you could win a hoodie.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. I'm Chris Carter, one of your hosts.
You
We're
don't
off
sound
the air
like-
right now.
Your voice is way deeper than Chris Carter's.
I'm on the
Deeper?
on the phone.
Yeah.
Hello,
That- yeah.
Under the Hood show. Is that better?
What is happening right now?
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Well, you could be like Mike Burnett from Sioux City, Iowa, who listens to us on WNAX radio,
Nice.
and you could win a hoodie. So he's going to get his 2XL hoodie.
I don't know if you should have. I don't think
They still call that the big stick?
you're giving
big
too
friend.
much information there.
Your big friend.
But they had such a
It is
powerful
a big stick.
tower
Yes,
that
it is.
wasn't that like a
Huge.
nickname or something?
Yeah, your big friend.
The big friend, not the big stick. Never been the big
I
stick.
don't think so.
Always been the big friend. I know that, but that's a powerful station. Boy, you can get that all over the place.
You sure can. So anyways, he's won that, care of our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. When we talk about drivability training, bang, there you go.
Yeah.
That's the place you go to get that drivability training, Chris. So anything automotive, check out uti.edu today.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Idaho and talk to Matt. You're on the Under the Hood show. Matt, what can we do for you?
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hello.
I've got a 1995 Honda DX two-door coupe that I inherited, and only has 71,000 miles on it. It's 1995, and it's a bare bones car. It's got standard transmission, manual steering, all that. It also does not have cruise control. You put a cruise control on one of these things. I've been looking online and kind of come up empty. I don't know.
You're talking about a 95 Honda CRX DX?
It's a Civic DX,
Yeah,
so it's
It's a Civic?
yeah.
Civic DX.
It is a Civic. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking you said it was a DX, and I was thinking it was
no,
a
just
Civic.
a bare bones Civic. Is
Yeah, you
this
can put
actually
cruise
a little coupe or is it a hatchback?
It's a coupe.
Okay.
It's got the 1.5 liter in it. It has no power steering, no air conditioning, no nothing. It's just tremendous gas mileage.
Yep. High fuel economy is what a lot of them like the.
They had an HF model. That's actually what it
Yep.
meant was a high fuel economy.
Yep, and the CRX, same thing. So, same little engine. It's a great car for daily transportation. If you just want something that has keys and heat, there, that's Shannon. What Shannon says. Drive it, get yourself a Bluetooth speaker, and strap it down with a seatbelt in the back seat, and have great tunes in it. Sony makes that.
Yep.
I bought one of those Bluetooth things, and it was pretty cool. But better sound than my radio. That's sad, isn't it?
It is.
So put one of those in the back seat. It'll probably take off 2 miles per gallon from the weight of it with the batteries in it. But the power steering, you don't worry about power steering or air because it's going to be about impossible to put that on without a ton of money. But as far as cruise goes, yeah, there used
Just
to
a
be
broom handle.
yeah. There used to be aftermarket cruise kits out there that you could buy, and they were not too hard to install. They consisted of a servo under the dash, a little stick with two-sided tape to the dash switch, or on the turn signal stock. They'd hang there with the wires hanging down. When we were kids, we'd see those all the time. And then they had a magnet that went on one of the shafts, the CV axle or the drive shaft, kind of whatever car you had, and it would just register your speed, and one clip to the coil wire tack side to give an RPM of the engine. Had a brake switch and a clutch switch to shut it off. Those were out there. You could pick them up through companies like J.C. Whitney and stuff like that. I would venture to guess somebody probably still makes one of those out on the internet. Amazon for sure is going to have something like that because I looked up a magnet for a drive shaft for one that had aftermarket a year or two ago, and they had that, and I think the kits were like $100 now, but nobody stocks that kind of stuff anymore around.
Well, it's gotten to be now with so
it's
many of the
different.
vehicles you can add cruise if you wanted to
because they got electric throttles
through the electronic system.
Yeah, but
And
this
ki-
car, I bet you got to have cruise. Everybody's got to have cruise, even on a motorcycle. We had the old clamp the throttle handle thing cruise where you flip the lever down because it's hard to maintain a steady speed.
Well, I guess the point I was going to get at, I do wonder if a lot of those companies that used to do those things they've just not enough market demand.
Right.
Because
why would you make it if you're aftermarket cruise? I would bet it's got to be less than 300 a year that would be sold, wouldn't you
It'd be
think?
very few. I mean, I'd hate to put a number to it, Russ, but,
But
you probably
on the
close.
other hand,
That
look
seems high.
look at Dakota Digital. You wouldn't think there'd be a market for thousands of instrument cluster panels, and they're huge.
Yeah,
I mean,
they just keep
this
pumping 'em
company
out.
is cranking them out, and for weird stuff that like I haven't seen one of those cars in years. But
I would
apparently-
jump onto. Thanks for calling the show, and I've got friends that are Honda just enthusiasts. They just love everything about these Hondas. I'm thinking of Monica right now, that she probably to be able to tell me this like that. Used to be on our sales staff here, but the
I know.
I
that
think if
system.
you got onto a Facebook group for the Civic owners, there would be somebody that probably has one. Or
And-
else they have something they've extracted from a car, and they would say, "Hey, here's the pieces you need. Here's what you need to do to put it on. Cut into this wire."
If you were an electronic guy, not like building, detailed circuits, but just somebody who knows, okay, I can cut these wires and follow a diagram, you could buy a module to go into the hood with the throttle, with the cable to connect to the throttle, get it out of like our U-pull-it yard type thing. Get that, get the switch for the dash, make sure you've got the correct brake light switch in there, and then follow the diagram, put it in. There's nothing fancy. It's not computer controlled. It's standalone. It takes speed signal from the transmission. It takes RPM from the coil. It's pretty basic to make it work. So you could adapt a factory one from another Civic. And I wouldn't go messing around with a lot of different years, because they started changing the way the speed sensor works on the transmission as far as the number of pulses per mile and things, which could affect it. So I'd get one right out of the 95 Civic, but I'd be the guy to
That'd
head
be
to
the
the
route you'd
U-pull-it
drive.
yard and try that. Any deeper than that anymore, I don't want to mess with it, but I'd go probably to a U-pull-it yard.
Is that going to be a 95 Civic? Is that going to be in a U-pull-it yard?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
good. It might be really rusty
Yeah.
in our part of the world,
Rust doesn't affect the cruise
but
control.
that
Right.
stuff would still be there.
Matt, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Michigan and talk to Paul. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Paul, what can we do for you?
Hey, thanks for taking my phone call. I have a 2018 Equinox, and as you guys were just talking, I had Hondas in the past, and so far it's been a real good car. And something really strange is happening as far as I'm concerned. The car runs great, the engine lights all look good, and then I stop, and then when I come back 2 or 3 minutes later, or even 5 minutes later, the car is really hot above the wheel well, right where the hood line is. And it gets hot, I would say hot to the touch, but not burning hot. And then it goes away. And then the next time it happened, I opened up the hood and said, maybe there's something hot underneath here. And the bar that goes across the front of the engine was hot as well. And my question is, what do you think that could be? And is it something to do with the unibody where it's transferring heat?
That's normal. And I say it's normal because unless it's smoking, that wouldn't be normal. But
How did you notice this, Paul?
well, we get cars that come in all the time, and they're like, "Hey, something's running wrong." So immediately I have to go open the hood, and they're like, "Yeah, that's hot." It's like something between the sun
Yeah.
and the engine heat. Yeah, it gets really hot. But we have Equinox vehicles in our shop all the time. I got one in there right now with the front end torn off it. Vehicles just get hot in that area. So the radiator, you got those fans are sucking air in the front, and where does it exit? Through the corners of the hood, all the way around, every corner, the front, sides, the rear by the windshield. It's coming out there and underneath the car. That's where the air's got to exit. So it's going to get a couple hundred degrees sometimes, and if the sun's beating on it, even hotter. So unless it's smoking or you smell something burning, I would say it's probably normal, although it may be very different compared to your last vehicle.
Okay.
So my
Well,
truck is black. It sits in the sun. I can pull a trailer with that for 100 miles, and it's not hot, like really hot to the touch. I can drive the Yukon 10 miles, and the hood is hot on the sides.
Paul, when you drive it at night, it doesn't glow red, does it?
no, I like your answer. The reason I found it was I smelled a little burning smell one day, and it was a really hot day here in Michigan. It was like 90. And so I knew my brakes needed to be replaced anyway. So I got all 4 brakes done, and I don't smell that smell anymore, but I've noticed that hot spot. But I like your answer. Let's stick with that and keep on driving it.
Well, if there's no components over there, and there's, it's not a exhaust shield, which wouldn't be over there. I'm just saying different things. If there's nothing that is mechanically related in that area, rest assured you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I like Paul's attitude too. That'd be my attitude. Oh, it's normal. Okay, bye. I'm good. I don't have to bring it in. Okay, it's good.
Paul gone? Is he still there?
No, he's still there.
No,
Paul?
I'm still here.
Hey,
no,
what
I was worrying about catalytic converter or something like that.
Oh, what color is your Equinox? Not that we're going to guess this, but is it a dark color?
No, it's white.
It is
Most
white.
popular color out there.
See, a lot of these vehicles too have, I'm just going to throw this out and I'm going to maybe sound stupid, but aluminum hoods too, and they might transfer that heat a lot easier. And there's it might
Especially
get hot
if you're not
quicker.
used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That wasn't bad. I'm not sure all the words you threw out were solid, but that one seemed all right.
Thanks, Chris.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
How you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us on the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Oklahoma and talk to Don. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Don, what can we do for you?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. My daughter got a job when she was 16, saved her money, and right before going to college bought a 2014 Mitsubishi Mirage. It lasted her about 2 months and no longer really drives well on the highway, which when she travels back and forth from school to home, gives her some problems. It seems to be like when you drive around in town, occasionally it'll feel like you're going over rumble strips. It's got an automatic transmission, and it feels like it goes over rumble strips occasionally. But as she gets going and gets on the highway, it starts to buck a lot, and then eventually goes into what I would call limp mode. She pulls over to the side and turns off the car, and then you cannot restart it. But once it's towed home, you can start the car back up. It sounds fine, acts normal, start driving around again, and then it all kind of repeats itself.
The car doesn't want her to go to college.
Sad.
The car
Right.
it wants her to stay home.
Well, her dad wants her to go to college, so we got to get this thing back on the road.
What year did you say it was?
14. Yeah, 2014 Mirage. It sounds like it's got an engine misfire. Like it's got a coil problem or something, and it's causing this thing to misfire, so it feels like rumble strips because it's bucking and surging. And it might be so bad that it's keeping it from going. But that could also, if it's a no start until it cools down, could also be a crank sensor starting to fail in there, and that could cause that type of misfire as well going down the road. And that
What would you do, Russ, if your customer called you and said, "Hey, what would we do? What would you do?" I mean,
I'd say drive it in, push it, pull it, drag it, whatever you got. Let's get it in, and I got to see this happen. And I'd probably get in it and drive it for 5 miles, and it wouldn't do it. Then I'd say, "Well, can't fix it. It's not doing it." But if it's doing it, that's easy to track down what's going on. You start off by finding out, what am I losing? So look at the scanner. Does it say I have a misfire on 2 cylinders, 3 cylinders, 1? What do I have? All of them missing. And then start examining. If it says it's got a misfire on 2 cylinders, I'm going to go to those 2 cylinders and I'm going to look at the coils, see what they look like.
If this happened to me and I had it towed to your shop, would it show up on the sensor?
It's going to show a history misfire
Yeah.
code if the check engine light's been on. My guess is the check engine light's been flashing on your car?
No, nothing.
If it
We
doesn't
don't
flash, doesn't come
anything.
on. Now, a crank sensor has the ability to shut an engine off and usually not set a code. If it's a misfire, it's typically going to set a code. So it could be a crank sensor because, again, it's shutting down completely until it cools off, which is, again, kind of indicative of a crank sensor. But those cars also were known for some computer issues. Put a couple computers in those cars because the computer circuitry would get hot. They would shut off, not fire. They'd cool down. They'd start running again. So that's an option too. But it definitely needs to have a shop take a look at this. While it's doing it, you need to find out, write it down, figure out a pattern, and so you can tell the shop. Because if somebody brings me a car and says, "You drive this thing for 5 miles, it's going to start doing it," I'm going to make sure that I follow that instruction so I can make it act up. I don't want it to not act up. It's a waste of my time and the customer's time. I want to find out what it is, get it fixed, charge them, be out the door. They're happy. Everybody's good to go.
Russ, when it died on the road, just to throw something out, if it was the computer that was malfunctioning and just not operating, would you be able to do that check where you turn the key on and see if the check engine light's going on, or it still could have power to it, or would it?
Yeah, either way. But if you turn the key on and there's no light, then that computer's dead. Either power lost, which is you're not going to lose power and then have it come back unless it's an ignition.
I'll explain a little bit further. Yeah, because when you start your vehicle when it's running good, the system goes through a self-test, and part of that self-test is the check engine light will come on briefly, and it's checking all the components, and then it goes off. It's just basically saying, yep, we're good. It's a pre-flight check.
If you turn that key one click before you crank it, all that stuff lights up.
Yep. And if when it's dead on the road, she goes ahead and turns that key back on again, and she doesn't see that cycling of the check engine light, it could be a good indication that there's something going on with that computer. That could be a hint.
Does that help you out there, Don?
So even if so even if that car dies and all that and everything comes back, that can happen with a bad computer.
It could. It could, most definitely. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you first started talking about the bucking and the rumble stripping, I was kind of thinking, okay, this is a transmission thing going on. But then you said it dies and doesn't start, and they're like, no, we're going back to the engine. And this is every vehicle does that check engine cycle. Just look at the car you're driving now and just watch your dashboard. Most people just get used to it.
Sure.
But if you just watch your dashboard as you turn the key on and start the vehicle, watch what happens with your gauges, the cycle that they go through under normal circumstances. That's normal on about every vehicle. It's doing a pre-flight checklist of the modules. It's kind of saying, "Yep, I'm good. Let's go."
And I would say most people just crank right past it.
Exactly.
And never even see it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that is something you can look at if you're wondering.
Don, thanks very much for the call. But the key here is to get it in while it's doing it, because then you'll be able to track it down.
Now, they got to fix this because she's got to get to college.
Yeah.
Dad wants her at college.
Yep.
She wants to be at college. The Mirage doesn't want to be at college.
That's right. 866-594-4150. What's caught your attention in the automotive world?
Stuff. I was thinking earlier. You said you were talking about 3 on the tree.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chris, how did you learn to drive? What did you start learning to drive on?
My brother had a 3 on the tree, and I thought it would be neat to learn how to drive it. And he said it would not be good for me to learn on this one because he didn't have a clutch. He didn't use the clutch on it so he said this won't teach you much. This won't teach you proper anything, so let's not have that. I learned to drive on an automatic, but when I was looking for a car, I knew I was probably going to get a manual because they were cheaper at the time. And my brother took me out and taught me how to drive a manual. I was in a Dodge. Speaking of the Eclipse Dodge, what was the
I'm trying
Daytona.
It was a Dodge Daytona.
That was kind of a sporty car to learn to drive in.
Yeah, and this happened a long time ago, so there's no statute on it. But my brother said he wanted to test drive the car, and then when they let us take it out, he had me drive it to learn on a car that wasn't ours, to drive a manual, which I thought was diabolically genius. But I had about 5 minutes in it, and then I bought a car that was a manual, and they told me to drive it literally out of the showroom. And I had never really driven a manual other than that one time.
I remember you telling that story.
Yeah, so I had to pull it off of the show. They opened up the big doors and said, all right, drive off in your new car. And I chirped it out of there. So it was a convoluted.
You should have just floored it and dumped the clutch and said, well, you told me to drive it out. I didn't
want
how
to kill
drive
the
a
engine.
manual."
Yeah.
That would have been great. What about you, Shannon?
We had an old Suburban on the farm. Well, I mean, we drove all kinds of stuff, tractors and different things. So we were in different types of equipment all the time. And nothing new or modern at that time. It was all older equipment, but power shift tractors, John Deere's with gates, Alice Chalmers with power shift. But eventually the vehicle that we all kind of learned to drive in was an old Suburban we called the Bomb. and the bomb is still here. It's in row 60 in the bottom of the salvage yard. I just walked by it not too long ago and walked inside it. It still smells the same inside, like farm chemicals and baby calves, and because that's what got hauled in there. And it was a manual trans 3 on the tree, and that's what we learned how to drive
It's
on.
still here.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Brad, we got a call piggybacking on that last call. Brad, you got help for us on the Mitsubishi?
Well, I don't know if I have help for you, but I just want to say I love you guys' show. I
Thanks.
listen to you on AM 1320 here in Sioux Falls, and I make
Cool.
a point to turn the radio on every Thursday and listen to you guys. I've got a kind of the same situation. My daughter drove out to western Nebraska out there and didn't have any troubles on the way back or out there. She was stopping every 50 minutes or something like that. Well, she got out to Ogallala and then headed out to this lake. And between there and the lake, it just died. I mean, just completely died. The only thing she said that was a little odd, she went through a little bit of rough construction, not real bumpy, but just some of that, and it just quit. But all right, so I had a great mechanic out there look at it, and he couldn't reproduce it. I tried to get it real hot and tried to get it to die, didn't work. So he did some things with the cooling system just to verify that, and did a few other things. And we thought, well, that probably got it. Well, coming back, she went all the way from Ogallala to Lincoln, no problems at all. Well, she went from Lincoln up here to Canton, South Dakota, and it just probably 3 or 4 times it just died, and then she would pull over the side of the road and kind of let it sit 10 minutes and pop the hood, let it cool, and then drop the hood and start it and continue on until it did it again. She wasn't able to come up with any kind of a pattern because we kind of worked on that as well as far as hitting bumps or the temperature. She was taking pictures of the temperature gauge, and it wasn't overheating. It was staying right about maybe a little bit over that 210. Typically, these run around that 205, 210 temperature range.
Russ, why don't you give him a few ideas here before we get to the top of the hour here?
We're right up to a minute
Well,
break here.
Those Jeeps, one thing we saw that was really common on those, on the passenger side, right down the fender, there's a wiring harness there, and they do rub through on the bottom, and they chafe, and occasionally that'll start arcing and sparking, and it'll shut the engine down. That's super common. The other thing that was super common on those Jeep engines was the crankshaft sensor, and they would kill the car. You could start it back up. They'd run rough, and then it'd kill it, and it would have to cool down first. I mean, those are the 2 biggest things we saw that caused stalling. I can't really even recall anything other than those 2 items that were stall issues on those.
Perfect training for her, though, when she has an EV.
Yeah.
You drive for a while, then you have to pull over for a little bit and charge it up. Brad, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Sorry we ran up against the clock on your call. 866-594-4150. Hour 2 is coming up. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant's.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. We've got a call that was coming in during the music there, so let's go right to Mississippi and talk to Jerry. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Jerry, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. This 2002 Silverado that I have has been having a little bit of trouble cranking. Takes a couple of times to crank it. But I've noticed that back behind the cab, around where the cab and the truck body is kind of separated, there's a high-pitched whine, kind of a squeal that is there all the time that the truck's operating, and I was wondering what that was and if it had anything to do with it being a little hard to crank.
Did you say this truck was a gasoline truck or a diesel truck?
It's gasoline.
Well, that whine that you're sounding like, to me, sounds like a fuel pump whine is what it sounds like. And those electric fuel pumps, some are noisier than others, and sometimes they get a little noisier when they're starting to wear. You'll definitely get a little more resonant noise from the tank. That's really the only thing underneath there on that vehicle that should be making any sort of a whining noise.
Well, let me mention that this 2002 truck has 60,000 miles on it only. So should it be worn out that quick?
Age.
Yeah, Russ hit it right on the head.
Yeah, I mean, and it could also be the fuel filter is plugged up and it's pushing really hard against it. It definitely could be at this age, even just collapsing in on itself from sitting that cardboard sitting in that fuel for 20 years. So have you put a fuel
something
pump
to think about.
Filter?
Yeah, well, I can check that out, but that may be the problem.
Just have you owned this truck since new, or did you just acquire the truck? I guess I didn't catch that.
I bought the truck brand new in 2002, and then the first go around with the super high gas prices happened, and it get parked in the garage except for places where I actually need a truck, and that is happening again now. But we've got two other vehicles that we drive mostly, but this is just a truck that hadn't been driven very much. It looks pretty doggone new, like it came out of the factory.
You got a prime piece of merchandise on your hands the way the truck market is. But if you're not looking to sell it and you want to keep it, I think Russ has said something that you definitely, if you can't say to yourself or look in your maintenance records and know the last time that there was a fuel filter put on that inline fuel system, the high pressure system, that would be the first place to start. Just to make sure you got good fuel flow. That fuel sat for a long time. There's a good chance it broke that filter down. And start there and see if it gets any better. And those pumps do just wear out over time, though. I mean, it doesn't have to be a mileage thing. Sitting can not always be the best thing for them, but typically they're going to be okay. But start there. I think you might find yourself happy.
Is it easy to change out?
As long as it's not corroded to the lines, and if your truck is clean and been inside in a concrete garage with a little bit of temperature control, and you don't have corrosion and rust under the vehicle, it should come apart pretty easy.
Jerry, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
If it doesn't, it can be a problem if they get corroded. That can be a real problem trying to break them free from the lines, for sure.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Dan. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Dan, what can we do for you?
Well, good morning, guys. It's kind of a general question and really kind of settling a family dispute. As the dad and the commander of the family fleet,
right.
I drive a 2004 Honda Pilot with 308,000 miles of proven roadworthiness. But I've always been in the habit and always try to make my kids and wife, when you turn the key on, earlier in the show you talked about the sequence that your car goes through, the little lights and this and that and the other thing. I always like to let it go through that whole sequence before I crank it. Kind of an old habit with some old big 13-ton delivery trucks that I had, diesels, where you have to let the glow plug warm up and all of that. Is that necessary? Does that do anything? Does it get the car's brain right before you crank it? Does that do anything? or is that just a goofy old man thing?
I think that the captain in the pilot is not giving good information to the rest of the fleet.
He's not giving bad information.
No, it's not
giving
necessary
bad, yeah.
information.
Not giving bad information, but it's not helping anything. It's the same.
It's not doing anything. It's not.
Nope.
It's not getting its mind right.
No, the only thing it may be doing is if you have a little weak fuel pump in one of these vehicles, turning the key on like that and waiting could cover that problem up because it would allow it to prime. But it's not going to, other than a diesel, you wouldn't gain anything out of doing that.
I would worry that he's training the car poorly, and so if someone else drove it and they didn't do that, it wouldn't start. I would think that the car he's doing bad by training it that way, which is also not true.
The car's not.
No, the car doesn't care at all, does it?
Not that model of vehicle. So, and if nothing else, though, that you're able to teach them, seriously, I mean this, you've taught them what is happening. And some people don't even know what's happening. They're just starting the car.
That's true.
So you've given them another level of alertness to be able to pay attention. So if we had one of your kids that was calling the show having the same problems as others have been, we could ask them, say, hey, is the check engine light cycling when it comes on? Well, you know what? The captain taught me how to do this, and I see that. And no, it's not, and now that you mention it. And so we'd love to talk to them on the show if they were having that problem. But other than that, it doesn't help.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks. I always appreciate it. Love listening to the show. You guys do great work.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks,
very
Captain.
Much. That is, yeah, it's not, but he might notice it. If something does happen, that's a good.
Now, we could get into a good argument with his family if he would have said, depends on where the climate is at and different things. I like to start the vehicle up and let it run for a few minutes before I take off. That is a good argument that a lot of people can have.
Even just a short period.
I personally, if I can remember, and I'm not hair on fire trying to get somewhere else, I like to let the vehicle idle for 15, 20, 30 seconds before I take off.
Yep.
You don't, though, ever. I mean, hold on. Wait.
I will tell you that with my Silverado,
this.
I do it now more often because I got a transmission that just sometimes doesn't do reverse real well. And it's a little bit of electronic gremlin, but if I sit there for a little bit, I never have a problem.
Keep it from burning up. So you get in it, you start it up, and then you put your seatbelt on, you adjust everything while it's running, and then
that
you
is happening as I'm going down the road.
Yeah, when do you have 30 seconds? When are you getting in your truck?
Sometimes I just get in and exhale.
No way. I've known you and worked with you now for 17 years.
I do it when you're not around.
And I've never seen you get in your truck with 30 seconds to spare. Not once.
But that's because you've never seen me when I have 30 seconds to spare.
I'm calling this one. I'm throwing the flag on this one. No way.
Watch me today. I've got to fly out to Florida, and I don't have my bag packed yet.
Yeah.
So just watch. I'm going to use all 30 seconds today.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the phone number to reach us. What has caught your attention in the automotive world?
There is, and I don't want to just go right to fuel because that's so easy. I just saw another one of my Facebook friends that had, maybe they were being smarty pants because he's capable of that, but he had posted, they finally arrived. I can't wait to put this to work. And he had, it looked like a package he had just opened. It was an unboxing, and he had his fuel pellets.
Oh, no. Say it ain't so, Joe.
Yeah,
really?
And I said, do not put those. I said, burn the money. Don't put that in your vehicle. Do not put that in your fuel system. So just don't do it. Don't put foreign objects in your fuel system. Don't do it. These fuel systems are so particular anymore. I don't know what's in those. Look at somebody wrote, "What is there an ingredient label in there? Is this approved by the FDA?" Somebody wrote on there, but if you don't know what's in there on a tablet or something,
They're just sugar pills.
Do not put it in your fuel system. The fuel systems on all the vehicles, you name it, are so expensive. The pumps are expensive. The high-pressure injectors are expensive. If you got a GDI, a gas direct injected engine, I would not want to think if you got the wrong substance in there, what would happen.
Can you imagine a gas station that advertises on their sign, we have the special pills in our fuel, so you're going to get 3 miles to the gallon better if you buy our fuel? No.
Just if you want to get 2 to 3 miles per gallon better, Chris, you're going to throw the flag on me again. Be ready to get it. I actually have a penalty flag I keep in my desk drawer, a yellow one and a red one. But get ready to throw it. We went on the 4th of July. We drove 350, 400 miles, whatever the exact amount is, up to my sister's cabin in northern Minnesota. My daughter drove part of the way.
Okay.
This is an important detail. I drove part of the way. I was able to get some work done while she drove. I achieved 4 more miles per gallon in my truck than normal on that trip.
Really?
We consciously, okay, 2 things happened. We consciously drove easier, and we got behind a lot of slow traffic.
Okay.
And couldn't pass.
Right.
And so we ended up going 2-lane highways. A lot of the trip was 65 miles per hour versus 70 or 75. And my truck registered 19 miles per gallon on a little jet ski trailer.
Okay.
I was
How much
thrilled.
longer did it take you to get there? 3 minutes?
It was not a big difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Slow and steady won the race. We actually beat my parents home, which never happens.
Huh. That's
Because we usually stop more, and and it was just by choosing and circumstances driving 65 instead of probably 75. Same truck. I've used this truck for 4 years going north now, and I usually get 14, 15 miles a gallon, and this time I got just about 19.
And you let it run for 15, 30 seconds every time you started it up? And
Oh, my kids were with me. We got in, we talked, we sang a song first,
Yeah, sure.
seen what was on the radio. Every time.
866-594-4150. Now let's go to Malta and talk to Rocco.
Malta, Montana?
Rocco, welcome to the Under the Hood Show.
Hi guys, how are you?
Fantastic.
Good.
It's good to finally get a hold of you. Don't be nervous. No one can follow where you are either.
You're not in Malta, Montana, right? You're in the little country
No,
over by Italy?
Yes, exactly, just underneath Italy, just a small little island. I found your podcast on Apple Podcast, and I've been loving it ever since. So very, very good job.
Well, thank you very much for listening. What can we finally do for you?
So, I have a 2005 Corvette C6, and I've been having this intermediate issue with it. Basically, one time we were going to the local track strip here in Malta, and I went to give it some fuel. I think I may have left the car on, I'm not 100% sure. But as I drove off, the engine light came on, and then after maybe 5 minutes of driving, the engine just completely turned off. I thought nothing of it. I stopped, pressed the brake, pressed the button to restart the engine. It was turning over, but it sounded like no fuel was coming in. So I coasted the rest of the hill down, started trying to start it again, but all I was getting was like a little solenoid click. The dash would go completely black, and the check engine light would stay on. And maybe after 5, 10, 15 seconds, I'm not exactly sure, the dials will do their little dance, so they'll do the sweep. And nothing. Just the accessories will turn on, but the engine won't even try to turn over. So after a little bit of Googling at that time, I found that they have an issue with the fuel relay. So I moved it a bit. I wiggled it around, changed it with something else as well, with another relay. And the car actually started. And it worked fine for the rest of the night. And I thought nothing of it. Then it happened again. Now, since I knew it was the relay, I wiggled it again. And it kept working for a couple of times. And then finally it happened and it didn't start. So I thought I'll just go ahead and buy a new relay for it. It's not expensive. And the car didn't start still with the new relay. I took it to a couple of guys here in Malta. Unfortunately, we're not big on American cars here. I mean, there are a couple of enthusiasts, but it's not something that is very common. So it's quite hard to get someone to work on them, especially with an intermediate problem like this. So I'm not really sure what to do, really. We changed the bearings for the alternator because they told me that the alternator was making a bit of a noise, but it's unrelated. And they told me it could be a timing issue, that the car thinks that the timing is way off, and it shuts down basically the engine. And by the time I opened the bonnet, the hood, Americans say hood, obviously. So by the time that I opened the hood, they were saying that the car does basically sort of like a reset, which I don't know. Again, this is just all speculation and second-hand information, basically. Because all I know is every time that I go to drive it, after 15, 20 minutes, it just cuts off for me and won't restart. It will always do one turnover, so it will start a turnover for maybe 5 seconds, stop, and when I try again, it does that. The dashboard goes dark, the check engine light stays on.
Well, 2005 is the first year of the LS2 in that generation, the C6 car. Yeah. And just to throw a couple things out to put water on the stories, lifting the hood is not resetting anything. Being out of time would be completely unusual, and when it did run, it wouldn't run right if that was the case. And so
it wouldn't start with
that. You're on
yeah.
the right track with the electronics that you're working on this car, for sure. It was the first year of the push button, I believe, in 2005.
Yep.
And so it's just a little different system as they went newer.
And the push button start runs from that key module on the dash through the body control module, and that tells the engine computer engage the starter relay. But you're telling me everything's like dead on the dash. If it's black when you're pushing that button and it shuts itself down, that would typically be more in the body control module or in that push button module right at the dash where the button actually is, shutting the car off. So if we were going to diagnose this in our shop, I would have the scanner attached to it. I'd have somebody riding with me and try to drive it while it acted up and see, does it say power on? Because it'll tell you key on, key off on that scanner as you're driving it. And if it says key off and everything dies, then I'm going to be looking at either the body control module, well, both the body control module and the push button on the dash, those two items. And to replace those, you have to install one and then program it. Programming can be done anywhere in the world with a laptop computer and a data cable that's set up to go to the OBD2 port. So
even if you had to learn how to do it yourself by watching a YouTube video and investing, if nobody did it, you could get into it.
Put one of those in there. Yes, you could get that done. You have to have a subscription to the SPS, which is you could purchase those one at a time for your car. So that can be done. It's the same way when we have a BMW here or a car that we don't typically work on a lot in America. We can get the laptop out and program it that way. So I'm strongly leaning towards, because it shuts down going on the road like that, towards a problem with that push button start, shutting it down, either the push button or the body control module. It could also be, though, as simple as the connection at that battery. If that connection is not really good, if they're not clean and there's no corrosion internally in the cables, if it sees that there's a power loss there, it's going to shut it down. And when you go to hit the button, all the lights are on, but when you try to engage it, it'll just go click and everything will go black. And it'll wait a few seconds, then it might come back, and then you click it again and it goes black because you're not getting a good connection there. They may have put an alternator on it, but that doesn't get rid of the power.
Has that car lived its life by the saltwater?
I purchased it in Malta, from Malta, back about 5 years ago, I'd like to say, and it was in the center of the island, but it's next. I mean, all of Malta is salty air base because we're just a small island.
So I would definitely be looking at wire connections and different things like that. Just thinking of the climate that you're in.
You know, you've been talking to us on Facebook. Send us the vehicle identification number off of it, and I'm going to run it through my system, and it'll give me all the details on the car, where it was bought, what it's equipped with.
In the United States.
Right. It'll give me all that because it's a General Motors car. And then because it was built here, so it'll tell me all that, but it also might tell me if there was a recall or a service bulletin for that very problem shutting down, which you may not be able to get where you're at. So send us that identification number, and I'll
I think
Do a
his
little check.
Corvette in Malta is yellow. What do you think, Chris?
I think it's red.
No.
It's blue.
What is it?
All right. You got it right.
Blue.
So, yep, it's blue.
Have you seen a picture of it?
No.
Oh. He's too good at this game.
Rocco, thanks very much for the call. Yeah, send that to us on Facebook there, and we'll Russell jump on there with you later on. That's
We got a friend in Bahrain that could probably work on
yeah.
it.
Thanks very much for the call. I have to say, this is kind of sad, but the most exotic thing in that call and evocative to me was the fact that he could coast down a hill. I thought, we just don't have those
Right
here.
into the ocean, Chris.
We don't have any hills here. I can't coast my car ever. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. And when you listen to the Under the Hood Show and you join our Facebook page, you subscribe to our YouTube feed, you could win a hoodie.
Like Chris Koppel, who listens to us in Attica, Indiana. Congratulations from all of us here and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu, your one-stop source for everything in the automotive training world. Also welding, marine mechanics, PWC stuff, all that kind of stuff. Motorcycle
CNC.
mechanics. Yeah, check it out today.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Rock. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Rock, what can we do for you?
Good morning, Russ and Shannon. This is Rock in Sioux Falls. I was up in this past weekend near Walker, Minnesota, with my son who drove up from St. Paul. And 15 miles south of Walker, his car died. Couldn't restart it. He was doing 65 miles an hour. And we called the tow truck. They came out. They jumped it. It was able to run. But we had it towed to a mechanic shop in Pelican Rapids just to make sure that everything would be a go so he could drive it back to St. Paul. What are your thoughts as far as the options of what could be wrong with it?
It was running just fine. It died. They jumped it, and then it started, but they couldn't find anything wrong with it at the mechanic shop?
Well, they couldn't find anything wrong with it along the highway. So we had it towed to the mechanic shop just to be safe so that he could drive it back 200 miles to St. Paul.
What did the mechanic
And we've
find?
not heard from the mechanic shop.
Uh-oh.
They haven't been standing in line waiting to be looked at. What do you think it could be?
Well, that line thing is normal at a lot of them, but it sounds like it may just, if it started after jumping it, it may have had an alternator fail or anything that drives the alternator fail. You know, if you lose a belt because you have a tensioner go out or something, it just lost its voltage and ended up dead. So then they were able to jump it, get a little more voltage in it, and it went. It could also be a battery that has failed. It's a 14. You know, who knows how old that battery is?
Yes.
So it could be.
Battery is 2 years old.
2 years old? Well, it could still be bad.
Yeah.
We've had some fail right away, but they'll want to test the battery. But if they come back to you and say your alternator has failed on that car, don't be surprised because we've had plenty of those with failed alternators.
With a BMW that old.
Yep, they just lose voltage and they're done. They just can't charge anymore.
And so you'd go down the road just
Hey,
fine, and
thanks,
the battery would hold it and hold it and hold it until all of a sudden the battery drops below the voltage that it needs to power all the rest of the system.
Shuts off.
That's what we hope for. That'd be the easy button.
Because I'm going to follow him back once he gets it going.
Sure. Yeah, that when it's driving like that and stops,
Yeah.
that
I'm
kind of
encouraged that they were able to jump it and it started.
Right.
And one thing about it is if it was that dead and they jumped it, I hope they jumped it safely and didn't jolt the system too much. But
when it died and you were on the side of the road and you had to wait for the tow truck, I'm sure you tried to start it again. Did it turn over or did it just go click and do nothing?
It clicked and did nothing. It wouldn't even click.
Okay, that tells me that it could very well be a charging system issue. If it was cranking over, then I'm totally looking weird
Something
because
else
I'm
is-
like,
yeah.
well, it's not the battery if it's turning over.
was he driving up at night with the headlights on, or was it in the daytime?
Daytime.
Yeah. It's amazing. You can go quite a while with a charged battery in the daytime and then all of a sudden it's just nope, can't do this anymore.
Well, and it also, when it happens instantly and completely. Where your car was running fine, never had an issue, and then all of a sudden it's done and needs to be replaced. Rock, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Mike. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Mike, what can we do for you?
Well, good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my call. I have a couple things to share with you. I have a 2004 Buick Park Avenue. It's got the 3.8 V6 in it, and I recently had a issue with the, excuse me, I'm looking at the paperwork now. There's a cooling bypass elbow in there.
Yep.
There's actually two of them, and they're plastic. And anyway, I had some antifreeze drip out, and I wondered, well, gosh, this doesn't seem right. Of course, it's not right if it's on the ground. So I took it in and had him look at it, and without knowing that this was the issue, I always thought it might be more of a thermostat problem or a hose problem or something. So I tried to look over do my own research on it first before I even brought it in. But the mechanic that worked on it was pretty knowledgeable, and he said this is very common with these particular engines. They're plastic, and what they do is they put steel ones in, which I was thinking, well, why didn't they do that in the first place? I mean, I can't believe you save that much money by putting plastic ones in there. But they say that right around, and I've got 58,000 miles on it, so right around that time frame, or this time frame anyway, those things didn't work, and the car's working great now. And what happened is, too, I noticed that on my temperature gauge, it went up to 210, and it didn't peg out on the red by any means at all, but it went up. It elevated the temperature in the car, which it hasn't done before. And I don't drive it all the time, but anyway, I thought I would pass that along. The mechanic also he said, something you might want to be concerned about. I try to be proactive versus reactive when to taking care of my car and stuff like that in my vehicles. And he said the intake gasket on these has been known to go bad, too. He said normally between 60,000 and 80,000 miles. Well, my understanding with the 3.8, and that was one of the reasons I got the car and everything before about 4 years ago, is because the motor is almost bulletproof. The car was really nice shape, not a lot of miles on it. But the concern I have here is in reference to this intake gasket, is this something I should leave alone? My car's running great. Or is this something that I really should look at changing out? He said once you do it, he says you won't have to do it again. Your thoughts?
Well, it's bulletproof, but not waterproof. As soon as that intake gasket leaks, it's going to kill the engine. Unless you catch it early when it's leaking outside, it's normal. I mean, if you got a car, a lot of it has to do with age. So
is that worse in our climate up north here versus other climates? Because even the old Fords with the 3.8
down in Texas, I've got friends of mine that look at me crazy when I say we put intake gaskets in or head gaskets in certain cars, and I think it's because there's not as big of a temperature swing. When you're going from 0 to 210 degrees on an engine in a wintertime, that's a lot more than going from 48 degrees to 210 degrees. So it's hard on these things, and a lot of people get in them when they're 0. And they get on the highway and they floor it and they take off and warm up the car faster, and it's really hard expanding and contracting stuff. So, yes, put intake gaskets in it. Those coolant elbows are bad. They just go bad.
Proactively? Even if there's no issue?
Now, yeah. I'll bet you if you look close, you'll probably see it. And once you pull them off, you're going to see they don't look perfect. They're probably already starting to come off. Right. And, we're talking proactive. We're talking a 2004, Chris. This isn't like it's a 2015, that'd be a little early.
And the car he has, if it's not rusty and it's clean and is good-looking car, high demand car, because they're great highway cruisers. They get 25 to 30 miles per gallon. They're really around our parts. There's people love cruising the highways with them.
Well, and like you said, those factory ones. They saved. You saved. Now you've got metal ones, and great. And they're from our partner at DormanProducts.com, I'm sure, because they're pretty much the people that make that. And the reason they did that, they took a factory problem and they fixed it with a quality repair by going with the upgrade. And you're right. The factory could have spent 10 cents more and put metal ones in, but they didn't. So they crack and they get corroded in, like melted inside. They just fall apart and they leak and they ruin engines. So
your 210 that you got up to not near hot enough to hurt anything.
No. So
it could have put some more wear on those intake gaskets, though.
Yep. And Dorman sells a complete intake gasket kit for that as well, too. So you can get that with upgraded parts. And, yeah, like he said, you don't have to worry about it.
Mike, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. In their defense, 10 cents times millions of cars is not
That's a lot of money.
completely insignificant, yeah. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. Let's go to Los Angeles and talk to Paul. What can we do for you, Paul?
Hello, guys, and thanks for the show.
You bet.
I have a 2008 BMW. It's an E90 chassis, 328i sedan. I got something very strange happening. I've owned the car since about 20,000 miles, so I know it pretty well. Every time I'm turning the steering wheel now, left turn, right turn, doesn't matter, I'm getting a straining, reeking, pushing kind of a sound coming right through the dash. Put the car on stand, and I had my wife turn the wheel back and forth. And I'm looking underneath at the rack and pinion unit, check the power steering pump, check the hoses and the reservoir, and I don't hear anything down below whatsoever. And it drives fine, it steers fine. There's nothing loose, no abnormal, steering going on with the vehicle. But I'm at a loss. I know there's no steering components whatsoever under the dash, so I thought I would give you guys a call and see if any of you come across this before.
So your hoses and all that stuff, you looked at them, no leaks, everything looks good there?
Yes.
Have you
Reservoir's full.
Yeah. Fluid looks clear, it's the right color and all that stuff?
Yes, sir.
Have you looked at the routing?
Pretty good on the main.
Have you looked at the routing of the power
Routing of the
steering
hoses?
hoses? Because on those cars, I've seen a few of them where the hoses run, they're really close to where they shouldn't be, and they can be bent and tweaked just a little bit. So if they're rattling against the body of the car when the steering is loaded, you're not going to see that if you jack it up in the air. If you lift it up in the air and you turn the wheels back and forth, there's no load on the system, so the hydraulic lines don't move. Kind of like a forklift. If you raise the forks up and down, the lines just sit there, but if you pick up a big crate, the lines are going to deflect a little bit and move because they're under a strong load with like a hydraulic system. The steering will do the same thing, and I've seen a lot of the BMWs, some of the Lincoln town cars and Continentals used to do that. They ran the lines, and they're strapped down, but over the years, they may have got touched when something was being done on maintenance or something, brake job or something, and they're just too close to the body or each other. And when the steering is under load on the ground and it's trying to turn, it's fighting back against the pump, and then they just vibrate a little bit. And when they do, they're making a loud noise in that dash. You might not even hear it under the hood. So if you got in the car and you turn it, and you hear it thump, 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 making noise, but then you get out and have your wife turn the wheel and you can't hear it under the hood, that's probably exactly what's going on, is that those lines are touching the body and vibrating against it, causing it to resonate inside and be louder than it would actually at the source under the hood. So I would say, just with all you've told us you've done so far, I would look under the hood, watch where the lines run, and just tweak them a little bit. They move a little bit on their bracket. Just move them like a quarter inch, just a little bit. Make sure they're not touching exhaust or anything like that, but just move them a little bit. Make sure they don't lay against each other, and then try it again and see if there's a change. If there's a change, you know you're on the right track, and then move them a little bit.
Or have his wife sit in there and see if she hears it, and then touch it
just
while
tweak them a little bit. Well, you won't want to do it while it's running anyway.
Okay.
So, but tweak them a little bit. I bet you got a line that's just touching another one and causing a rattle inside. Pretty common.
Does that help you out there, Paul?
They're both rubber. Yeah, they're both rubber lines.
Yep.
One's pressure, one's return. And then they go into a fitting into the pump.
It's usually the pressure
down
line that
rack,
does it.
And down into the rack, it's steel line.
Mm-hmm.
I'll check it out.
Just try to tweak that a little bit and see if that fixes it. I bet that's what's going on with it.
Paul, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Nebraska and talk to Pierce. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Pierce, what can we do for you?
Hello, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
You bet.
So I've been listening to the news, and lately the Supreme Court came out and discussing, pretty much said that the EPA now no longer has the rights that they initially had for setting like emission standards for vehicles. And I'm a trucker. I haul steel out of Colorado, and being in the shop, I've noticed that all these EPA emissions and stuff really take away the efficiency from trucks, and at the same time, kind of degrades the life of a truck as well. And it limits power and things like that. And so I just wanted to see kind of what your guys' thoughts are. I know this is a new topic and it just came out, but I wanted to see what you guys thought about that and how it relates to emissions with truckers and what that can do for the industry. And what are your thoughts on if trucking companies are going to be able to quit using, these emission modified modules, or if it's something that's still going to need to be regulated?
Well, I have to study that really a little bit more, but to the best of my knowledge, I thought that really was just in regard to factories, the power plants.
Coal.
It didn't extend that reach beyond that arena, that subject. As a matter of fact, at the same time the Supreme Court was making that ruling, there has been landmark judgments against diesel shop owners that have been modifying and deleting and defeating emissions devices on the vehicles.
Enforcing current laws that have been on the books since the 70s.
Correct. So I know that you hear that and you get your hopes up, but I wouldn't. And there's not a single manufacturer that I could think of, even if it was something that was more further reaching, that would immediately go out and change their vehicles.
Right.
Because they've engineered them to the point where they feel like they're doing a good thing with their emissions. And it is no doubt that from this pure power and performance standpoint, that the emissions are difficult for the vehicles to achieve full efficiency,
especially on a truck
with all that stuff on there. You're right on the money on that. But the reality is that's the world we live in right now.
And I know it has been discussed that since this decision went that way, it was just power plants, coal, greenhouse gases. There has been talk about maybe they can go after some other emissions things, but as of that Supreme Court decision, and that was power plant and greenhouse gas emission based. So not relevant to your trucks, at least not now, not for a long time.
But SEMA and the SEMA show and that whole thing, they are on top of that stuff continuously, trying to keep in a relatively small market when you're looking at custom cars and things compared to the trucking industry. They're trying to keep those on the road, and they're always notifying us. I mean, immediately whenever there's any kind of a thought that there may be a vote on something or something like that. So we will know about it right away. I mean, within
minutes. And that is
minutes
what you would call the aftermarket.
Yeah.
The Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association.
Yep. So I'll get a notification on my phone that says, hey, a vote just came up today and this happened. It would be ginormous news that we would announce on the show right away, because that we have a very large percentage of our listeners that have trucks and things like that would love to be able to change something, or not worry about that they've taken off emissions devices that had failed and made their vehicle run horrible. So they didn't want to spend thousands of dollars to fix it with the right emissions. So now they're driving and it's driving fine and getting better mileage even.
And they're all quite efficient on emissions to begin with, but they're trying to take it to a next level.
Yeah.
Pierce, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. We talked to Rocco in Malta earlier about his Corvette, and that's relevant this week, Shannon.
It is, and I kind of feel bad talking about it because I'm not going to be here, and I think I just...
First we found out about that.
I think I just informed these guys because I thought my dad had told him that I wasn't going to be around, but apparently he did not, or he didn't get the message across. But we've got the last year, and we helped with the Quick 60, which is part of the lead up to the Black Hills Corvette Classic, which is a huge event. I mean, as far as if you're into the Corvette realm of the
Affects
world.
the country.
There's people from all over the place that come to the Black Hills Corvette Classic. And it starts off that on Wednesday, on Wednesday the 13th, is what we'll be particularly involved with, is this Quick 60 event. And they're going to hold that at the W.H. Lyons Fairgrounds, and this is completely open to the public. They'll have music playing, there'll be food vendors, and just lots and lots of Corvettes.
Lots of
and
Corvettes.
People hanging around talking about the automotive world. The Quick 60 that they're going to be doing that night is going to be for the Corvette Club. And this is after they've started the day at Jerry's Corvettes in Beersford. Then eventually they find their way up to the W.H. Lyons Fairgrounds in Sioux Falls. And thank you to Under the Hood Show and Nordstrom's. We're going to be having a first place cash prize of $1,000, a second place cash prize of $600, a third place cash prize of $300, and a fourth place cash prize of $100. And you can't have any drag tires or specialty racing Corvettes. I know that there's a couple that come and put on a demonstration that are quite impressive, the Summit cars, and they've been winning some events. I've been watching on Facebook here. A guy that helps tune those cars has been putting out there. They've been winning some pretty good events with those cars that'll be there, I believe, to be on display. And they've got a new, I think a C4 that they built to be into a different class this year in the competition with one of the cars. But they'll be there on display. And so we'll be there, and they line up from a standing start for 100 feet, and they go 60 feet to a timing late, and they have 40 feet to come to a complete stop. You go over the line, you're disqualified, and it's kind of fun to see because we're trying to cut hairs about whether you get down into the 3-second range, the 2-second range, or maybe rare air and get into the 1 point somethings for the 1 second range on doing that. And there's driver skill involved. There's obviously vehicle performance involved. It sure seems like from what we've watched, the driver's skill has plenty to do with it.
Absolutely. And brakes. Brakes was a bigger factor than I thought because that stopping is a lot of people have pretty good times but can't stop in that last 40 feet. They go past the stop line. So it is fun to watch.
Yeah, those race cars that'll be there from Leisinger Racing, sponsored by Summit, Lucas Oil, is their sponsors, and they'll have those cars in the display. They've got countless hours and dollars setting those cars up and tuning them for what they do. And they do a lot of different things other than the Quick 60, but that's some impressive stuff. So that is Wednesday, the 13th of July at the W.H. Lyons Fairgrounds. Gates open at 4, and the Quick 60 is going to run from 5:30 until 8.
Okay.
And so if you want more information on that, you can look up the Sioux Falls Corvette Club.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Thanks for joining us. All right, welcome to the after show. Let's go right back to the phones and talk to Chad. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Chad, what can we do for you?
Yeah, see, I've got a 2013 Ram 1500 with a 5.7 Hemi. Most recently, the steering has almost like a hiccup in the steering. It feels like it's losing its power steering, which I've done a little research. It looks like there is a recall from Ram 2013 to 2019, so I did my due diligence, had a mechanic look at it. Not a Ram dealer, a mechanic. However, called the warranty company. They're like, well, it doesn't fall under the right VIN code for your problem, but it's the exact same problem that they're recalling. So I'm going to take it upon myself to bring it to a Ram dealer and see if I can get this to happen. Do you ever see where these companies that put out a recall for a specific problem and then go, well, we're splitting hairs and yours doesn't qualify? You get that changed, or are they just pretty tough on that?
You won't get it. Yeah, I've never seen it myself.
Well, here's what can happen, though, Russ. In the beginning, they may be limited to this thing.
Right.
And then they might come down later and say, okay, now we're going to do this batch.
They could change it and reimburse you, but as far as you going in and right now they're saying it's not covered, it's not covered.
If
They're
it's
not
not
spending
in
a dime.
if it's not in the campaign, most likely that dealer's not going to say, yeah, we'll just do that one too.
But if you save your receipts,
Right.
and it becomes a thing, we have had many times where we get a call that says, I need a receipt for this vehicle because you've put an evaporator core in it, and now it's covered by a warranty thing. 3 years later, we had
And
that
then you
on
get reimbursement.
Yeah, the Pontiac Torrents, where the evaporators leaked. You know, they said, oh, it's a safety thing because it coats the windshield with antifreeze inside. So they recalled them, and we provided them a receipt, and they paid the customer back what they spent to get it done. So those things are good.
Can you remind me what the fix was on this warranty? What are they doing
It's a
for
gearbox,
the fix?
isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically the electronic module and rack.
Yep.
So when I'm driving, just for a split second, I will have no control of my power steering. It just stops whatever direction my wheel's going for that split second. It'll just lock it up.
It would not be surprising if they cover that later because that's a safety issue. And if you can prove
That's
that,
what I got into as a.
yeah,
Here's one thing that I would also do is I definitely would go to the dealer and have them check, and maybe the information. Okay, let me back myself up. Did the mechanic look it up, or was it the dealer that's already given you the information to say that you're not in the campaign? He called and checked.
I called and checked with the warranty company myself. He did the due diligence and hooked the computer up to it. The campaign basically says you have a contaminated circuit board. And that circuit board gets glitchy then when you start allowing that power steering assist to take place. And so it basically goes up, don't want to power steer anymore, and just for that second you won't have steering.
Okay. Well, I definitely would start my conversation directly with the dealer myself as the vehicle owner and get it documented so they can get it into the system, documented that you've been there, asked about it, had a problem, document the problem. Hopefully they can do it all the time.
But it's like a $2,000 to $3,000 repair.
It is very expensive. Will it do it every time?
No, very random, but I'm now driving with my hands locked on the wheel and gingerly turning, not knowing when it's going to happen next time.
no, when they stop assist, boy, it can get really tight, really hard to turn.
The good thing is that hopefully you're being aware. You still will keep your steering. It's just such a dramatic difference between the assisted steering and the non-assisted steering that many drivers will think that they have no steering.
Right.
Because it's such a dramatic difference.
Chad, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. And just save your receipts and hope.
Oh, that's terrible.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to JJ. You're on the End of the Hood Show. JJ, what can we do for you?
Hey guys, I got a CRV 2012. I hit a deer on Good Friday going up to Aberdeen for Easter. 3 weeks later, my windows don't go down. I don't know if it's a reset or a fuse or what might be going on there.
They didn't go down immediately or 3 weeks after the deer hit?
After the deer hit, after everything was repaired, my nephews worked for an auto body shop.
So
did a great job.
It was.
So now it's
when did it
after
happen? I mean, right after the repair or 3 weeks after the
Just
repair?
noticing it now.
Yeah, it was 3 weeks after the repair. Everything was working fine.
I
and
think
now I can't. I've got air conditioning, thank God, but
sounds like a coincidence. There's you do have a fuse box relay center under the hood. I can't remember if the windows come out of that one or they come out of the one inside. But if it's one under the hood and it was hit hard enough, it may have a broken wire in the fuse box underneath.
Okay.
It's plausible.
Yeah, and then that fuse box a lot of times has to be taken loose and moved out of the way to do repairs and put back in. They leave the wires on it a lot of times. Sometimes they take the wires loose, so it may have a connector not seated well. A pin might be partially bent over. Something could be loose on there, or it could have one that got pulled when it got hit, and now it's got to be repaired. So they'll have to look at that, and they start with the power. They start with the fuse. Do we have voltage there? Yes. Move on to the wire coming out of the box. Do we have voltage there? Yes. Well, then pull the switch out. Do we have voltage at the switch? No. Well, then we got to find out where the wire is broken in between. If we have voltage at the switch, then it's got to problem maybe with the master switch, and it could have just failed. That's a coincidence that it just failed.
How hard of a deer hit was it? Was it in the front end and into the structure of the vehicle, or was it the side, or what happened?
It was on the left side of the vehicle, so I was fortunate it did take out the radiator. Or he was so close that I hit. You're supposed to hit the deer, I guess. But
yeah.
Your initial reaction is to try to swerve, and which is not good probably. But he was so close, and then and there's deer hair everywhere, and it's like it was 5 miles from Redfield, because I like going to Mitchell and stopping at the Cabela's. And
well, have them reinspect that area. If it was in the headlight pocket area and the fuse box sits behind there, I can't remember which side it's on, and just have them reinspect that. But if not, it's probably just a coincidence.
JJ, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Nebraska and talk to Ron. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Ron, what can we do for you?
Yeah, say I've got a Chevy 2004 6.6 diesel engine, 3500 dually, and my air conditioner's acting up because I can start it, and I live where I farm, so I drive to the farm about 5 miles. And just before I get there, the driver's side of the air conditioner turns hot, and the passenger side stays cool. And that's what's going on. And then I can shut the engine off and then start it again, then everything works cold again.
Fixed.
Yeah, there you go. It's fixed. That's what Chris says. Have you had it in to have it recharged to make sure that it's got the correct amount of refrigerant in it?
I have not, no.
I would do that first.
Noticed that.
Yeah, you've got enough age on it, years, miles, all that stuff. I would definitely have it checked. They'll evacuate it. It'll weigh the refrigerant, tell them how much is in it exactly, and then they recharge it with the correct amount. It sounds like it's probably just low. And, after it runs a while and the temperatures change in that evaporator core and condenser, it just changes, everything drops, and you can lose refrigeration on one side versus the other because the amount of liquid refrigerant that's running in through the system and how it's evaporating into that evaporator core there as it cools off. And
doesn't have enough volume to spread across the entire
gas.
core.
Yeah, exactly. Right, just like a heater
Well,
core when it's low on refrigerant.
See, I've got the fan, and on 1 and 2, it's a 5-speed fan. And on 1 and 2, it hardly puts out any air. But you go 3 to 5, it blows like crazy. But I have no problem there.
Yeah, I definitely have the refrigerant checked first, and then the second thing to check is going to be the blend doors in there, make sure they're moving like they're supposed to. But it really sounds like it's just low on refrigerant, like it needs a recharge.
And your fan control, there was is this a fancier model with the automatic temp control, or has it got the manual slide levers or the turn levers?
No, it's just a knob you turn.
Okay, we had a delivery truck in that era, and there is a recall on the fan switch and the wiring to it.
They recalled it once and then said, "You're fixed. You'll never need it again." And then we replaced it 3 more times.
Yeah, and that's
4.
So that could be a completely unrelated problem.
Just for the speeds.
That has to do with the fan speed.
There you go. Ron, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Let's go to Connecticut and talk to Dan. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Dan, what can we do for you?
Hey guys, despite the Connecticut area code, I live in Indiana, so
okay.
Pardon the confusion there. Yeah, so we've got a 2003 Land Rover Discovery 2 that's kind of like a puppy, pees on the carpet and chews my slippers, but I'm never going to get rid of it. The current problem du jour is a battery drain that I can't seem to chase down. So when I bought the truck a couple years ago, it had the air suspension on it, and when the truck was shut off in the driveway, the suspension pump would keep running and try to keep it level. So I've since replaced the suspension with coils, and so is no airbags anymore. I've disconnected the pump wiring, so the pump doesn't run anymore. And I'm still getting a draw on the battery when the truck is sitting, and within a day or two, the battery is just stone cold dead.
Not what you're looking for, even for the puppy.
No, not exactly. I mean, I've gone so far as with my mechanic, we've installed a shut-off on the negative terminal of the battery. So like, if I know it's going to be sitting for more than a day, I'll just shut the battery off entirely. But it's kind of annoying to have to keep doing that.
Well, if he's already put a manual switch in the line, at least you've already got the line broke where you can easily put a current meter in line to see when it's off what your level of current is that's flowing from the battery. That's going to be step one. You got to get that vehicle to sleep. Keys out. I know Russ always recommends keep the window rolled down so you can reach inside if you need to do anything. And then start at the battery and just see how much current draw you have. You should have 250 milliamps, 750 milliamps, very, very little.
Less than 150 on that vehicle.
Oh, it's at that low on idle, on rest, when it's just sitting there. And if it's more than that, then we start saying, okay, what circuit is doing this? And then you want to have access to your fuse panels.
Go
ahead.
I've gone through the fuses and basically nailed it down to the ABS circuit, which is really confusing.
Well, no, it could be. If it's ABS, you could have a problem with those vehicles had a lot of problems with pump relays sticking on, and they would run the battery down. And that's the main thing, because all the other solenoids don't turn on until the module's activated. But that pump relay can stay on, or the relay can be partially on, where it's draining a half amp, but it's not enough to run the motor, but it's a half amp, and it's on all the time. So that could do it. You know, if you can unplug the ABS pump right at the pump and you drive this thing and it never goes dead, it's very likely you've got a relay stuck inside that unit and you'll have to replace the unit or drive it without ABS. But Land Rovers are no stranger to battery drains. Could be anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does this, I've got a little history with a Range Rover Sport in that same era, a little bit of the same era. Is it got a sunroof?
It does have a sunroof, yes. It's not leaking yet.
Well, not so much leaking. Just make sure that you've got water flow when it gets wet on the roof down to the ground through the drains. There's drains that just make sure that you do, because if they ever get clogged, they'll then back up water that gets into the channel that all the wires sit in. I've been down this road. And so always make sure that they're flowing good. And if you're not seeing,
that might be it as well, because I've had the XYZ switch on the transmission and a couple other sensors go bad, so that could be
well, just something to consider. And I'm just saying that from personal experience with an 06 that we've got, and that's why we got it, is because somebody had said it was flooded. It wasn't flooded. They didn't leave it out with the sunroof open. They just all but one of the drains were clogged. And so when we get a heavy rain, all the water would feed back inside the vehicle, run down the side pillars, and it would end up in the channels along inside the vehicle. And so the wiring harnesses lay inside there. And all the connectors that were poor connectors and not water sealed would corrode away, and you'd lose connections. So you'd get wet on the passenger side, and you'd lose the driver's side mirror and the driver's side seat control. Just crazy things would happen. And I dissected that vehicle and found all those connectors and redid them, and everything came back to life. But just make sure you got good. And get on YouTube. There's a ton of videos. I'm just saying that as another thing to think about.
Yeah. YouTube has been my amateur mechanics teacher for sure.
I've had to learn a lot about that Range Rover by watching YouTube videos.
Yeah, it's a lesson in becoming an amateur mechanic so that I can keep owning this thing. And that's part of why I own it, is so I can learn useful skills. But every now and then I get to, how the heck is this thing going wrong? So
well, thanks for calling, and thanks for being a hoodie. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and this is the after show, Dan. Why were you so busy that you couldn't come on the show when we tried to call you?
Yeah, so I was telling your producer, I was actually teaching class when you guys called earlier. I'm like, oh, of course they'll call while I'm teaching. So I work with a company called SEAL Team Leaders. I'm not a retired SEAL myself, but I work for one. And we were teaching the SEAL method of planning to a company this morning. So,
And then not to buy a Land Rover if you don't want to
yeah,
learn it.
I use my Land Rover. Yeah, I use my Land Rover as an analogy quite a bit of contingency planning. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And so thinking through what can go wrong in your Land Rover and are you prepared to deal with it?
Speaking of Land Rovers, you know, I can see when you think Navy SEAL driving a Land Rover, if we were, you know, because he said he wasn't, but if he was, that kind of makes sense, right? I mean, you could see a guy like that driving not a brand new one,
I'd be
but
disappointed.
like one that's a few years old. I could see that kind of
He
thing.
drives
Corvette.
an F-150, not the Raptor, but the one right underneath it.
Yeah.
So the Rumbler or something, or Tremor, something like that.
Yeah,
They got F-150
okay,
Tremor.
I can see that, or a big Duramax truck or something. So this morning, I'm coming into the show.
Go ahead.
I see a brand new Range Rover. I mean, it's like brand spanking new, you know, just off the showroom. It's got a plate on it, but it's brand new. There's a nun driving it. Full habit, the whole thing. And a guy in the passenger seat who he looked like he could have been a priest. You know, he had all the black on, but he had no collar on. But they're driving this thing, and it was from out of state. And I'm thinking, well, they didn't take the vow of poverty, but I just looked at it and went, it just looks so funny to see a nun driving a brand new Range Rover.
Yeah, she's about to break the vow of celibacy too, with the kind of people she's attracting with the Range Rover.
All right.
Oh, that's funny, Russ.
It was just so weird. I don't know. I mean,
I just saw on Twitter they showed the other day.
They could have been dressed up to go to a costume party. I mean, it is what?
That's true.
June, July?
It's not that. There was a Twitter feed I saw that somebody had, in New Jersey, they had 5 brand new Range Rover Sports on a transport, all the same color, all the same everything, it looked like. And one of them was laying on the ground, destroyed.
Oh.
It had fallen off the transport. And it was just the back end was all crunched, and the front end looked okay, but it looks like they might have been a bridge hit, because I've seen plenty of them on vehicles.
Watch YouTube. There's great videos of crashes of stuff like that. You know, like where one will roll off the front of the truck when they stop for whatever reason. They didn't have it tightened down and it skidded.
There was one here locally, and you brought up the Navy SEAL. What would they drive? But there was I tried buying it, and I didn't get it done, but it was would have been a 2014, I think, brand new blue Raptor that when they tied it down, they didn't account for all the suspension travel.
Oh no!
And
Just
so
like when
there's
we tie down
a
dune buggies in
specific method
ATVs.
for tying them down,
Sure.
and strap the wheels type of thing. And as they went down the road, eventually it bounced and came
It'll
on
bounce
chain,
and unhooked.
and it slid right off the
Ooh.
back onto the side, going down I-229 or I-29 outside of Sioux Falls.
L-
And it was a
last-
Raptor rolling down the highway.
Last night I went to Home
Oh, boy.
Depot to pick up my siding order that came in. And of course, I didn't have a trailer, and I'm to the point where I don't want to, ask Shannon, hey, can I borrow your trailer? And Jake was like, hey, just use mine to pick it up. But he's got trees down and stuff. Like, I'm not going to bother. He's on vacation. So I'm like, I can get it in there.
Were you taking the truck? You have an 8-foot bed truck, and how many feet siding?
16 feet.
Oh.
Bad idea.
38 pieces.
Oh no!
So I took this pallet apart, took all
Shorter.
38 pieces out, found 6 of them broken.
Back end's
So-
all
Before you
worn
left the
off.
store.
Yes, but
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't have unstrapped them
Yep.
and I wouldn't have found it. So that was great. I found them. So I fit them, and they bend a lot because they're made like Trex decking.
Did you
They're
go through the back window?
I went through the window
Oh.
all the way to the front of the console, and they went, roof, roof, like this, and they just sat there. But the truck was weighted down because it's like Trex decking. They're 1/2 inch thick. They're thick. So I bet it was probably 500 pounds. But it's running through there, and I'm going down the road, and I'm like, this is great. They're not going to go anywhere, right? Because they're heavy. And then I hit the bumps, like
Oh,
you
no.
were saying. As I would hit the bumps, they would go boing,
And they
like
start
a
sliding,
saw
moving.
blade in the old cartoon. And the whole thing was like, and I'm trying to hang on and drive.
You should not be telling this
At
story.
the same thing. So Daryl Myers going, well, that's why you didn't answer me last night when I called. Because I'm like, I'm not answering that phone. I'm trying to drive.
Trying to hold siding.
Oh, it was nuts. It was We have seen so many vehicles, and I've even tied down like dune buggies and stuff and ATVs. Motorcycles are the worst. You tie those down. Why did my straps come off the front? Because the forks move 12 inches.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, well.
Well, Dan,
Funnily enough, my Navy SEAL buddy and I were actually doing that with his electric dirt bike out in Utah last week.
Raptor electric
strapping it down
dirt
to
bike.
his
It's
down to
making
his
sense.
trailer.
Oh,
yeah.
hey, what?
I'm
I'm intrigued. Electric dirt bike. What manufacturer is
Those
it,
are
or
cool.
Yeah.
what do you got there? What's going on?
Surron. They're called Surrons, and it's basically like a combination of a dirt bike and a downhill mountain bike, but it's electric, and they are a blast.
They've got a lot of electrics out there that are real fun. I'm not sure if I'm big on. I don't know. I keep watching car videos about them. They had a big face off of a Lightning, and then the Toyota truck and the diesel GM with the straight six diesel, the 3-liter, and all that. And they said, okay, we're going to fill these all to full with a specific method, and they're going to go 160 miles, and we're going to see what it costs to go that miles. And then they did it with campers, same camper towing and everything. And yeah, it wasn't. There wasn't a big thrill out of the electric. It did it, but it wasn't great. But but this other stuff is fun. It's fun to own an electric car when they're not forcing them on you. But getting forced upon you in the public is crazy. But if you just want to own one, it's great. It's like, cool, you got an electric car? Well, I don't want one, but it's cool, you got one. But these motorcycles, man, they're getting more powerful all the time, and they are nuts how fast they go.
So the chassis on this,
we were going 44 miles an hour uphill.
Mm-hmm.
Is the chassis on that the equivalent to like a 250 or a 450 in bike now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this the
similar-
SURRON?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
it's very similar to like a 250, but super light. I mean, it was like a slightly heavier mountain bike. I mean, it was really light, easy to move around. I mean, obviously it's got a big battery pack in it, but
looks like a moped, like a bicycle.
Yeah, and so fast. Like we were going 44 uphill on the side of a highway and about 30 on gravel roads, and just effortlessly going.
How long could you ride it before you had to stop and charge again, or how would that all go?
We rode for an hour and went a little over 10 miles, and I think it was still over half a charge, so you can go for quite a while.
That's what Mike Batey has underneath that scrappy airplane. If you've seen that on YouTube, Chris, he's got those 2 electric motorcycles hanging from the wings underneath, and then solar panels on the wing to charge him while he flies and push planes. Yeah, he's got. If you've seen that, anything with that, the guy overbuilds everything, but he's just a total nut. He'll build like 12-cylinder, 1,800 horsepower engines in planes that are made for a 200 horsepower engine, and nuts.
Last weekend we were at the 4th of July. I ended up renting. We were mountain biking, and I rented a bike, and ended up my rental got screwed up because somebody had broke the bike I was supposed to rent before I got there. And so I ended up renting a Cannondale Habit electric mountain bike, or e-assist.
Mm-hmm.
And it weighed 50 pounds, but it was sturdy, and it was kind of fun to ride. But I was trying not to use the e-assist because my brother-in-law and they didn't have it, so I didn't want to. Sure. Until the last day, I was in eco mode a lot.
Yeah.
Because that hog was getting tired of hauling me around.
I've gone for bike rides with my daughter, and I'm like, oh, you want to go back already, huh? All right, I guess.
But I got to say, we had that for 2 days, never charged it, and the first day I didn't use the power assist a lot, but the second day I did quite a bit, and it went down 1 bar on the 5-bar display, and that was pretty neat experience.
Yeah, it was telling me later, like they're fairly affordable considering like a medium kind of high end mountain bike. It's going to cost you at least $5,000.
Yep.
These are like $4,200.
Wow, the bike I was riding, to buy it new was $10,000.
So
yeah,
have you all noticed
rental
how crazy this stupid stuff has got? So bicycles, $5,000. Electric bicycles, $5,000-10,000. Mountain bikes, a decent pontoon boat, $100,000.
Yeah.
Go buy a Ranger bass boat, $100,000 to $170,000.
It's all fake.
Campers, $100,000 for some of the smaller off-road models. What the heck? What do they think the American public's made out of?
Yeah, no, the other bike that my friend rented was a Santa Cruz Nomad mountain bike, just a regular, high test. That was just about a $10,000 price tag on a pedal bike.
I've got a $200 Walmart Mongoose mountain bike, and it's great. It gets me everywhere I need to go, just as fast and as
I could have ripped my
comfortable
leg up on that just as easy as the expensive one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Man, got to eat. I can't. No.
Well, Dan, thanks very much for the call.
Thanks for hanging with us during the after show and letting us tell stories.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Yeah.
ask you questions.
This is wonderful, and I was just reminiscing. I've been listening to the classic car talk for forever, and stumbled upon you guys after exhausting their latest one. I'm like, it's like Car Talk Reborn, and with
Tell a friend.
guys I can
Tell
actually
1,000.
call and talk to. So. Yeah, I will
Tell
absolutely
your
do that,
class.
and it's just been an absolute. I will definitely.
That's awesome, Dan. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for the call. Take care.
Take care.
All right, that'll do. I think that'll do it for the after show.
Yeah.
What did he say he was teaching? I didn't catch that.
Navy SEAL class in SEALs like
Planning
to
like a SEAL.
to
be a SEAL.
Yeah.
No.
No,
corporate.
no,
Like
corporate.
Like corporate.
Oh,
talk.
see, that's what I thought. I thought it was something corporate.
Mm-hmm.
So acting using the SEAL mentality in your business acumen.
Like we went to the Disney way,
and we did the fish thing that one time.
Yeah, that was good. The Disney thing, especially now, I'm like, no, but I'd do the SEAL thing. That sounds
pretty cool.
There you go. All right, that'll do it for the Under the Hood show.